Hey, it's Dell Jackson. We got Andy here. We're doing our preseason 2022-23 LL boys basketball preview right after Thanksgiving this year. So we did some interviews with the coaches this week. They're all posted up on the site, so you can check out what the coaches' thoughts are. And then today, Andy and I will talk about alignment a little bit. We'll talk about some players to watch. Andy might step out on the plank and give us some of his favorites. Dell probably won't go there, but it is what it is. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing good, brother. I'm 6 feet above ground and it's basketball season, so I think we're doing pretty well, all things considered.
All right. Hey, let's start with realignment tonight. So we had some changes this year. We've gone from 5 sections to 4, and we did all that in the on the website. It's all taken care of under section 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So section 1 pretty much stayed the same except for Lebanon coming up. Yep. Section 2. Let's talk about section 2 a little bit.
Section 2 is, you're right, it's probably the more interesting group, I would say, because you have like a team like Warwick, who when I played was for years and years a section 1 team, and now you're putting them with a team like, say, a Solanka, who was in section 3 most recently. And you still have your teams like Ephrata and Central. Like, it's weird too, because Central is a fairly large school, but you don't really think of them as like a section 2 type school. But it's also going to be ironic with Central this year, because they're probably going to be right near the top of the class in terms of that division right there.
Right. What 2 teams moved up? We got Spot and Central. Are they the 2 teams that weren't with these guys last year?
Solanka was. I don't think Solanka was.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay, good. So Solanko, Spot, Central, and then Lebanon moved up. So,
E-Town's still in there.
E-Town,
CV. Well, yeah, CV is still in there. I keep thinking, you and I keep going back and forth. We're like, are we sure CV is not a section 1 school? Then yeah, they're section 2. So
they're section 2, but if they make the District 3 playoffs, they'll be a 6A team. So that's kind of rough. Do you're plugged into Warwick more than I am. Are they 5A this year or 6A when the districts?
I am 98% sure they got the blessing to go down to 5A.
Good for them. Good for them.
Yes.
We'll come back to these teams when we start breaking down a little bit. I'm going to go to section 3 here. I got Calico, Donegal, Elko, LS, Lancaster Catholic, Northern Lebanon, and Octorara. So where's the movement there? What teams kind of moved a little bit from last year?
To be honest, when you just rattle them off like that, it sounds pretty much status quo, because like you had Donegal with Catholic with Octorara with Elko with Northern Lebanon. Like, everything seems pretty much aligned to the way it was. It's just really, when I look at it from like the 30,000-foot view, for me, it's more of like the couple of oddballs that went up, not oddballs, but you know what I mean? Like the couple of one-offs that went up to section 1. And the section 2 is really the more, for me at least, what realignment is supposed to look like when you think realignment. Like, really, like these schools are going to be playing each other type of thing. So
right. And I was surprised but not surprised when I'm looking at section 4 that we have Anvil, Columbia, Country Day, Lancaster Mennonite, and Pequea Valley. So basically, they kept all the smaller schools in this section.
All that happened there was they got a name change. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And then talking about this, Andy, I know that this year there won't be any of those crossover games. Some teams will play some crossover games, but they will not count in the standings. That's my understanding. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct. Yes, there will be probably a good bit of crossover anyway, to where it would look that way, but just as far as like the letter of the law, it'll just be a normal like non-conference game. Like, for example, I know Warwick and Calico are having a non-league, which is it's still weird to me how you can play in league but not be league. Like, I don't get it, but
they gotta fill things in. I know the Mid-Penn boys, they got a lot of teams, so once they start, they're pretty much all league games. As far as scheduling goes, I would think the Section 4 guys have the biggest and toughest road as far as filling in games because they're only playing. Well, we got 2, 4, 6, 8. Is that they're playing each other twice, so they don't have a lot of league games as far as first and second there.
Yeah, and I know I think it was Coach Glover and Coach Schultz specifically basically said, "Hey, listen, we're going to take on all comers because we need games, right? I mean, you need games to fill out your schedule. You can't rely solely on what
Sure.
the league presents you with mandatory. I mean, you need to find some other games. So yeah, I can't imagine what that must be like because you think of a school like Country Day. I mean, it's 1A.
Right.
How many teams really want to take that risk, if you
Right.
will, to play a 1A school? Like if it doesn't go so hot for you in that game, then you're really going to bear the brunt of that later on. So,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
God bless them. They'll find games. They always do. But well, and Columbia, like they're going to play. They could play Emotep. They wouldn't care. We know how they conduct their business, so they'll be fine. But yeah,
The nice thing with the small schools, even with their schedules, is most if they have a decent record at all, even sub 500, because of our district and not having that many teams like single A teams. There's not very many single A teams, so most of those teams will qualify, for the districts anyway, regardless of where we finish in the section. Most, I'm not saying all, but most of them. So, all right, let's talk about. I don't know. Let's talk about players to watch this year. I mean, you and I talked off camera a little bit. We came up with some. I don't want to go team by team, but let's just start with Section 1. And if you got anybody off the top of your head that you like, just throw out the names. And we're not going to omit anybody. We're not going to say, "Well, we didn't mention so and so's team," but we're just basing on what we saw last year and what you saw in the summer and what we saw in the fall a little bit as well. So let's start with Section 1.
yeah, and just kind of like on the more macro with this is let's be honest, we lost a lot of kids that played last year that could still be playing this year, but for understandable reasons, especially with a few of them.
Yeah.
Not to knock our own league, but if you're going to have aspirations of playing higher and
Sure.
coaches are going to keep sniffing around, it might be in your best interest to go
Sure.
elsewhere and pursue your craft. So, but yeah, we kind of, I don't want to say we kind of took it on the chin with losing talent this year, but I mean, there's some voids to fill. But to your point, as far as the kids who are back, if we're starting in Section 1, I don't know about you, but don't we have to start with Miguel Pena at Hempfield? Like, arguably the best player on the best team. Like I think that's probably a good
3-year starter. I mean, yeah, that's a good start. I like that. I like one of his teammates there, Mr. Troyer.
I know you do.
Yep.
I know you do. And Hester, I believe, is back. He was at media day.
Just about their whole team back from last year.
Yeah. Yeah, just about the whole team back. You're right. I saw them over Warwick in their little fall showcase, and Hempfield's going to be fine.
Yeah,
they'll be fine.
We don't worry about 300, 400 win Danny Walk. We don't worry too much about that. No. Who else you got?
He might have a future in basketball.
Yeah,
he might.
Right. Who else you got? Section 1.
Yeah. If we want to go kind of under the radar, I haven't been shy about pumping this kid up. I know you like him too. It's Sebastian Henson from Manheim Township. Wing player, not a ton of size in Section 1. So it's like, if you can stretch the floor and be a matchup nightmare, it's not a bad place to start. I mean, the kid can fill it up. I mean, I saw him play at Cumberland Valley in a non-con game pretty late in the season, and they got something there. And I think he's only a junior. So
yeah.
So if he can
6'2"-ish. I got the roster. I'll check it out for you here. I got the roster. I got part of their roster. I think it's gonna be finalized maybe tomorrow. I don't know, maybe tonight. So we'll get that. All right. So who else you got? I know we got one guy at McCaskey that's played for 4 years.
We got Mr. Bird. That's the point guard. What do you want to say about him? I know you see McCaskey more than I do, it seems.
Yeah, yes, I've seen him play. He'll be the glue to that team. I mean,
Yep.
he'll be the guy that keeps those kids together. And it seems like they've had some roster turnover, but you know, I there's games where he just dominates from his position. So he'll be fun to watch this year, no doubt. In fact, you know, I can drop a PR thing here. We're gonna have them on our first live stream, Penn Manor at McCaskey, December number 17. So we'll get him close up, and we'll get him on the camera, and we can sit there with our clicker just like the coaches do with our huddle, and say yep, nope, yep, and all that good stuff. All right, how about the comments?
Well, I think we know who it starts with.
Yep.
Doesn't it start with Mr. Benny?
Yep.
And you know, I know you obviously have more of the ins, being Mr. Penn Manor, with everything there. But to what I guess you would like to talk about, he obviously had he had the most difficult offseason of anybody in the league, hands down. And from what I can tell, it sounds like he's going to be on the mend and going to be playing a lot. So maybe you could share some of those other things.
Yeah, he had some health issues last year, and they seemed to come back with a vengeance this year. But he got down there to the Children's Hospital of Philly, and they fixed him up. And Dad's ready to see him play, and he's got his fingers crossed, and he's excited to see him play, and he's nervous at the same time. So I know Ethan follows us a lot, and it's cool watching a kid develop too. I think. I mean, you know, he's a big guy. He runs, he jumps, he can shoot the ball. So, you know, a lot on his shoulder this year. I mean, we used to say when I was coaching, it's like it's a lot more difficult to be number one in that scouting report than it is to be number three. So, you know, you move up, then you get a lot more attention than you got the year before. You know, you're going to get the best guy. So, you know, that'll be it'll be cool watching him with our fingers crossed. So let's hop down. And I know you and I talked, and a lot of these teams have guys that I don't know, how do I say, are unproven or haven't had their chance yet. What are you thinking?
Well, before we go to section 2,
okay,
isn't it most appropriate that we just somehow forget about Cedar Crest? Like, do you think that maybe they'll play that up?
No, they need a little motivation there. They do. I had them second on my list, by the way, Andy. So we just kind of hopped around. So I did have Crest on my list. So go ahead, sure. Give us a couple Crest kids.
Sure, we did. I think Tommy's going to find this snippet and like probably put this out there. Just a weird guess, right? Like how they are, but
Mr. Motivator.
Oh yeah, but it's funny when we talk about bigs. I don't know how you get much bigger and much more physical than Aiden Champ.
Yeah.
I really don't. It's going to be interesting to see how, and Tommy's going to figure it out, right? I mean, he's still going to run the Lebanon County offense, as I call it. It's going to be drive and pitch and drive and pitch and drive and pitch. But when you have a key cog like that inside, I'm sure that can help. I don't really think that throws that offense out of sorts. And then my man, Fernando, man, I mean, Marquez running the point. We saw him in summer. How would you describe his game? It's just, for me, it's smooth, but like it's a little Showtimey too. It's
here's what I
like it.
He's like Charles Barkley. That's what I think. I mean, he can do a lot of things. He's strong, and sometimes he uses his strength, which is good. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he'll bully guys, but you know, he's tough. He's a tough kid. And the thing with Crest, and we'll talk about this when we go back to do some semi predictions. They're still young. I mean, I don't think people realize that last year he had a lot of sophomores, and Champ was one, and Marquez was one. He had a couple more kids that were on there as 10th graders. So, you know, this year they're 11th, and, you know, they kind of fizzled at the end of last year, but I think they got a lot of good things to look forward to. All right, so I checked off Crest. Are you happy now? I checked them
Hey,
off.
I'm fine. As long as they're going to keep playing with that chip on their shoulder, I'm fine. So we did our part tonight. We can shut this off now. So we're good.
I love it. I love it. All right, let's shift to section 2. Again, I'm looking at these teams, and I saw most of them play last year, and we're putting up rosters every day. I'm getting new rosters and putting them up. And again, is it a situation, Andy, where these guys just aren't proven, or they haven't stepped into the spotlight yet? I don't, I mean, I'm seeing guys that are probably averaging 8, 10 if they're playing, and then some of these teams just have brand new rosters like CV.
For me, it's going to be a mixture of both. I think more to your point, it is going to be a little bit more unproven under the varsity lights thus far. But you still have Trey Groot, right? Like you still have an all-state guard in section 2 who I think was he the only one, with the exception of Mr. Burton, that was probably an all-state player for us last year? I think that's right. I think.
Did Hurst make it?
Oh, that's right. That's right. Of course. Yeah.
He made it as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you have an all-state guard who's been there forever, I mean, that certainly helps with that. But yeah, there's going to be, this is going to be the mix of proven and unproven, and largely unproven probably, because as we talked about at the top, Gilhol's gone.
Right.
Like that's a 6'10" piece that's gone.
Correct.
And
Correct.
Now you don't have him.
Correct.
Not to say that like it's all down and out for E-Town by any stretch, but that's a piece that's missing. So someone's going to have to ascend into that role.
Yeah.
Warwick is going to Warwick. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. Like last year they lose Kai Sapala. Okay, Tate Landis steps in.
Right.
Now Tate Landis is gone. So now who's going to kind of go into that? I mean, I'm just looking here. I got him right in front of me. I know Trevor Evans. I like him a lot. I really do like him a lot. Football kid. So he's probably getting his sea legs back under him now, although they didn't make playoffs this year. So maybe a little bit more so than years past. Who else do we got here? Our boy Horst, right? Click with the pictures. Got to mention him.
Fink.
And then no, Fink was a senior last year.
He was a senior last year. Okay.
So that's what I got right here. So
I mean, somebody, I think it was our friends at Cable 11. I think it was Chad wrote, and he'd say, I'm looking at their roster. There's no seniors. So they got a lot of, not old people, but they got a lot of guys that had a lot of experience as far as they went. And they seem, I mean, at this point, we've seen them in the LL finals. We've seen them win section crowns. It's like they're the reloader team. That's the way they are. Yeah,
they are. And I asked Chris about this on Sunday at Media Day, which we can, if we're looking for more fodder and more things to talk about then, we can talk about what Media Day was and how that worked out, which was very good, by the way. But I told him, I was like, being a township guy, you've seen Warwick before, you've seen him up close from enemy territory, but like this is much different. Like this is not like a once in a flash in a pan type Warwick. Like this is a legit program now.
Right. And
being in section 2, as we've said before, is a godsend. It really is, because you can make a lot of hay in the win column. Yep. Get that momentum in the community, get kids wanting to play basketball, because people want to play for a winner. I mean, let's just be real about it. And the one thing with them too is we got to talk about them. And I had Chris's blessing to talk about him on Sunday. We have a freshman. I'm going to drop him right now.
Okay, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Your Majesty Washington. Okay. Your Majesty, right? We're not going to forget that name. Like, name aside, this kid has the talent. And I'm hesitant to do this with a kid who hasn't played a varsity minute yet. This kid, I'm telling you, if he puts in the work, he can be Jack Hurd level.
Okay, good.
I'm serious.
Oh, good.
Because, I mean,
hopefully he'll stay around. Hopefully he'll stay in the LL. Hopefully he'll stay in the LL for 4 years. That'd be nice too.
Right, but I mean, he's got like I know you haven't seen him play, and no one really has either. But I saw him play in the fall. Like he has the frame, and he can fill out more. Like, and he's smooth. He can go in, he can go out. Like he's going to be a really nice player over the next couple of years. Again, if I guess we have to talk like it's college coaching now. Like, make sure you recruit your own players and don't lose them to the portal. Like, but that's a question for down the road. But yeah,
let's hop to 3. So I'm looking 3: Calico, Donegal, Elko, LS, Lancaster Catholic, Northern Lebanon, and Octorara. Any players from last year that stick out for this year coming back?
I can't keep this kid a secret anymore. I think you know where I'm going.
Yep.
I'm starting with Octorara.
Yep.
And I'm starting with Zach Perk.
Yep.
You saw him at Brandon Park with me.
I did.
I was like, keep an eye on this kid. This kid is smooth. He can fill it up. I swear the kid rolls out of bed and can score 20. Like I seriously. And I think the game that really encapsulates that the most, aside from the actual scoring total that he put up, was if you remember last year, Octorara played in their first league game, which was the early play-in game that Friday night at CV.
Yes.
And they were still kind of teetering on the bubble for districts, where it's like they obviously wanted to play in leagues, but they had a really important game against Twin Valley like 12 hours later. Yeah. Like it was at like noon or something, right? Yeah. So I go down to Octorara the very next day after they, kind of laid an egg in that first game in leagues. Kid drops 37 on Twin Valley. Like, and he was a sophomore. This kid's only going to be a junior. Right. This is going to be a name that, just because of his numbers, I can't keep him a secret anymore, but he's going to explode. And then when you have Hamilton, I mean, that certainly helps, right? I mean, that's not a bad, piece to add alongside him. I mean, but the thing with Octorara is like, I know we're harping on like 1 or 2 kids, but like just looking at there's such a roster, right? Like there's so many pieces there that, as we talked, and if I'm going out on prediction, I'll say it now. For me, that's Section 3's team. It is. I mean, that's not to say that they can't be gotten, right? Like, I mean, we know LS, like, yes, we know LS loses a lot. I think they only have 1 starter back, and it's Ben Wirt. But I always use that philosophy of, if you can't beat them, like, they're still on the mountaintop. Like, you got to knock them off. Yeah. And I think LS is honestly, I think LS maybe is in some teams' heads. Like, when you, and it's like, how can't they be, right? They've been so dominant against everybody else that it's kind of like, oh, geez, it's LS. Like, we want to, you know how it is. It's human nature. So
5 out of 6, buddy. They're 5 out of 6 from Coach Berriman.
Yeah.
Section titles, 5 out of 6. Man.
Yeah, and last year they didn't lose it. And last year they didn't lose a game. And now, granted, it was when the stakes were the most serious. Yeah. But they didn't lose a game all year. And I said on this very thing last year, I said everybody's playing for second place in section. What were they? 3? Section 3 last year.
Yeah, that was 3 last year. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm not going to make a bold prediction like that this year, but yeah, LS is going to be fine, regardless of what people think. And oh my gosh, they lose this, that, and the other. LS is fine. This is another program. Yeah. Berryman is a proven winner.
Yep.
They're gonna be fine. Yep. And then Lancaster Catholic, I've said this before on record, I'll say it again. For my money, Coach Glazes is the best X and O coach in the league. So regardless of what they may or may not have on the roster, that's like, oh my gosh, look what Catholic has or doesn't have.
Sure.
I got a feeling he's going to keep them in the game himself, probably, right? Like, so.
All right, let's hop to Section 4. Standouts in Section 4. I know Columbia, they lost a ton of players.
They did.
I think Anvil was a little young last year. And Pequay Valley had a couple of kids. But I think we're going to zero in on Mennonite right now. What do you think?
That's your team, man. You see them all the time. You probably know the kids' middle names at this point.
I confuse their names, but I know they're
Hurst and Weaver. I'll start you off there.
There you go. Well, the big guy is 6'6", and he is a load. He's got big hands. He's got good hands. I mean, they throw the ball to him and it sticks. A lot of times these guys are big, and sometimes they fumble, bumble, and it seems like he's gotten off to a slow start 2 years in a row. So if he's healthy, I think that's going to help him. And Cam Hurst is, you watch in warmups and you're like, okay. And then this guy gets in a game and he gets to the rack. He gets to the rack left. He gets to the rack right. He's up above the rim. And then they back off of him and he goes behind the back and he shoots a step back three. And it's like, he's a scoring machine is what he is. I mean, that kid's really, really special. He's already got 1,000 points, I believe. So, that's a two-headed monster that has height. And they've been there before. I mean, you helped me out here. They've been in a championship game for districts 2 years in a row. Do you know?
It's
been at least
last year. Obviously, they won.
Yeah.
Did they beat Antietam twice? I think they might have. Does that sound right? I think so.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
they played them twice. Yeah.
Oh, that because was the year before was COVID, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, they did. Yes, they did because that's what you had to win to get to states, and that's
Correct.
when they lost to Old Forge. Yes. Okay.
Correct.
So then,
Yeah.
yes.
And I was at that game as well. So
right.
I do follow them around, don't I?
Yeah, you do. You're. I don't know. I don't know if you're on payroll or not, but
it's my backyard, brother. It's my backyard. So they're always nice to us there. It's a good place to watch a game. The fans get into it, and so same way with Country Day. Country Day, those fans get into it, and Columbia, and Peckway Valley, and Annville. So it's always cool to see the smaller gyms. I mean, probably out of the gyms, Annville Cleona probably got the biggest gym out of those groups, maybe Mennonite, but Mennonite seems to put a lot of people in there. So anyway, let's circle back. So we got the coaches that let you and Bruce interview the coaches. So is there anything, there was one that stood out to me and I've been trying to replicate it and I can't. So let's start with Coach Hall. So Anthony Hall Solanco, this is his first year, correct? First year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I read his, we interviewed him earlier. I read his resume and I was like, whoa, I was blown away by his experience and what he's done with basketball and who he's worked with and what teams he's done. And then I'm listening to him the other day and I'm like, oh man, I got to get one of them t-shirts. So what he did is he did the word accountability. And then he mirrored it. So the kids had to, when they looked in the mirror, it read accountability correct instead of mirrored it. I've been trying to replicate that because I want to put that somehow. I'm going to have Coach send me a JPEG of that and I'll put it up there on the website. I just thought that was the coolest thing. So what stood out beside, that stood out to me right away. There was a couple others, but tell me a couple of stories or a couple of things that struck you is different. Coach has got coach speak. They all have coach speak. I mean, we know that, but is there anything that came off the page to you that said that's pretty cool?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. And I think what was really good about this idea, and I know we've kind of been involved with an idea like this in the years past. And it's like, well, obviously, yes, LL Hoops wants to do it, but can we as two individuals, do we have the logistical manpower to set all that up? So thankfully, LMP stepped up and did a marvelous job with it. I know on the boys' side, we had perfect attendance, which is fantastic, especially on a Sunday, right when the season is getting going and everything that comes with that.
Yep.
It was a really good event. And I think what I really took out of it is just, and we get this in our passing, but everyone is just so appreciative of the exposure that things like this can do for these kids. I mean, this is someone who played in the league, I'd like to think not all that long ago. This is a different type of exposure that hasn't been seen before. Yeah. And I'll tell you point blank, on Sunday night when I came home, I'm friends with other coaches in other leagues. They're like, you're killing us by how jealous we are that we don't have this same type of passion that just exudes out of you guys that cover the sport. It's such a godsend and hopefully these kids like it. I mean, it's just like what you and I do. Hopefully what our love, like hopefully it comes out in what we do. That's the least we can, hope for. But everybody was very appreciative. I think a lot of coaches really, especially down when you get maybe down to like Section 4 and stuff like that, like they really do appreciate the grapevine and the opportunity to speak. They may not be used to it all that much, but that's what we're here for, right? I mean, seriously, right? I mean, that's what the point of this is. I mean, this is a day for them. This is their day to talk about what kind of culture they like to do, what the off season is like for, and I asked Coach Coletti, he was saying like they got a lot of juice, they got a lot of enthusiasm. I'm like, what does that mean at a place like Anvil, not a super huge school like it? And I asked him, I was like, does that mean kids are blowing up your phone at like 7 a.m. on July 14th? Like, Coach, I want to get in. Give me your key card. Like, I want to get in. Like, how does that work? So it was really interesting to see and hear really, how these guys are, what their off seasons look like, because prior to something like this thing that happened on Sunday, we saw them out and passing in like summer leagues and stuff like that. You can get them to the side and we can, have off the record conversations and stuff like that. But it was really good to really get a sense of like what everybody's off season was. So, that was really good. A lot of cool things, and with Coach Hall, if you're looking for a shirt, get in line because like I want to be first. So,
I want that accountability one because I want to give
I'm
it
first. I'm first.
All right,
No.
I'm second. Tell him XL. Okay, all right.
Okay, I'll tell him.
Or tell him better yet. Tell him to send me the gift. Get the JPEG, and I'll get a T-shirt with LO Hoops accountability. So I'll look in the mirror and say I got to do a better job here getting the scores right and getting Kerry Glover's name spelled properly. I mean, it's like what the heck we did. I don't even know how many interviews we did, 20 some interviews, and we got one guy's name wrong. And I love the people from Columbia, man. They were on it. They were right there. It was great.
They were paying attention. Paying attention.
That's good. That's good. We got a lot of traffic on the website. All right, let's circle back. So okay. I'll put you on the hot seat a little bit. So let's go Section 1. Give me one or two teams you think gonna be there at the end. Now this year, LL, we don't have 10 teams this year. We got 8. We're back to the 8 format. Top 2 in each section. Go ahead.
Big boys. Hempfield is 1. Okay. Right. I think that's a pretty safe assessment. Okay. Two. I like Crest. I like Crest. I like Crest at 2, and I think Crest can probably like at least split with Hempfield. I mean, they can. I think so. I mean, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that like Hempfield is gonna run away from the pack.
Right.
I don't think it's anything like that. But I would say if you're sitting here on November 29th, it's Hempfield and Crest is the top 2. But like we talked about off top before we came on, it's like what kind of like what are these sections gonna like? Who's gonna be the most competitive depth wise? Like what's that gonna look like? And I think in a good return to form, I think it's gonna be probably Section 1.
Yeah,
I do. McCaskey, we're kind of waiting on them to kind of be McCaskey again. Having a senior point guard like you talked about, I think it certainly helps, right? Yep. I mean, because that's gonna be so heavy on guard play, and you'd like to think a 4-year varsity guy is gonna help you out with that. Township, I don't know how you count them out. Although with Coach John's, like I was kind of kidding them yesterday. It's like let's start a little faster this year, right?
Because they wait to the end. It's like, come on, boys, and part of that their philosophy of getting better, but sometimes you got to get better in the beginning. You got to get some W's early, so not to put that stress on them to win those last games just to get in. So yeah.
But to your point, you can't say. I mean, is there really anybody in any given season that gets better than Manheim Township down the stretch? I mean, just based on that alone, right?
Nobody.
Yeah, they have to play catch up, and sometimes they get caught up, right? Like they can do it, and especially in 6A.
Hempfield does a good job of that too. As
right
the season goes on, Danny does a good job of refining what he does and cutting his bench down, and they're always ready for the playoffs. So. Okay, so
Penn Manor, I think it's going to be better than a lot of people think. Right. I do. I really do.
Yeah, we saw them a couple of times this summer. Yep. Boy, somebody keeps trying to call me. I keep telling them not to call me. I don't know.
Pretty important. That's what that means.
Oh, no, I keep telling the guy, it's like, no, I'm busy. Hey, all right, so let's go. Let me see here. Let me go to section 2. I'm clicking on the things here. All right, section 2. I'll take first shot at this. So section 2, I think, looking at this thing right now from afar and seeing some of the teams play and not seeing all the teams at their strength, I'm going to say a Warwick Mannheim Central game could determine a section 2 champ. Your thoughts?
I can't disagree. I can't. I think that those, again, on the outside from where we are right now, without seeing literally anything when the lights are on for real, I think those have to be your top 2 teams in that section. I do. We've said before, Warwick is here to stay. They're not going anywhere. This is where they belong in section 2. They've made it their own personal playground. And I don't see that changing, regardless of the lead dog they lose every year.
For sure.
They just they're going to keep it going.
For sure.
Central, we've said this is probably the best Central team since like the Matt Walsh and Funk teams.
Yeah,
different looking, right?
Yeah.
Like the size is a little different, but yeah, I think Central's going to be just fine. Although I was teasing Coach Fisher, I'm like, you must be a terrible person to work for because you lost all your assistants like overnight. Like something you're doing something. I don't. If you offered me a position, it's like I don't know. Like there must be something there. But
you got the coach.
But no, I mean,
he's the coaching tree. You know,
I know.
K, Bobby Knight, coaching tree. That's all it is. That's good. That's a good thing.
I know, but
that's a good thing. Hey,
but no, good for him.
I'll drop this.
But good for him. But good for I'll just say this too, and kind of joking on that, but in all seriousness, I mean, good for him because it's not like those 2 guys left like for burnout or anything that.
Sure.
One left to be the head coach of the girls program at Central, and the other one took the job at Twin Valley for boys. So like he's pumping them out, I guess. Is he the guru now, I guess? I mean,
well, I'll drop.
I don't know. I mean,
I've been trying, Andy. I'm going to drop this on you. So Mannheim Central Warwick right now, never know, but we got a live stream up in Central's Doe Run for that game later on in the year. So, you know, in the little shoebox. So we're going to make sure that we get in there that night. I got some connections. So we got a live stream scheduled for that one. So that's good. Let's go to section 3. Go ahead.
I've already shown my cards.
Yes,
it's it's Octorara for me. Like okay. it is. I think
second dog. Battle between. I think the second
LS and Catholic.
Yeah, I think so.
Probably.
I think so.
Right.
How about Elko? We didn't talk anything about Elko. They got a bunch of little guys this year. Usually they got height.
Back to penetrate and pitch. Okay. Back to what Coach Connors wants to run. You know, I know he would like height, you know, like with what he had the last couple of years, but there's something to be said, I think, as a coach, and you can probably you can talk to this better than I can. When you can lay your head down on your pillow at night and say, I know the offense we're going to run. I know it inside and out. We can do what I want to do. And it fits them this year, right? It's not like he was trying to run that offense with like towers inside.
Right.
I mean, now and again, if you're going to run that type of offense, guard play is so heavy. And I'm going to guess that a coach's son is probably a good place to start with that. I would imagine, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Dallas George.
We got a newcomer in Ryan Shipper. So we got the father and son game later on, which will be a first. So we checked out. How about Cacalico? You know a little bit about them. What do they got?
I do.
Go ahead.
Well, right now, sitting here today, Coach Sigmund would take anybody. Right now, he's really short on numbers because a lot of his guys are still playing football.
Sure.
Right now.
Yeah.
So they're they're going to get after it this weekend. They're one of the few teams that are playing in a tip off this weekend. So he's obviously not going to have them
Right.
for that.
Right.
And then it's just a matter of what they do in the playoff game for football, like if and when he gets them back. But the thing with Kikalico that's nice is regardless of who they have or what they have, I joked with him about this. You like Kikalico is probably I don't want to say the only team in the league that you know what you're going to get, but like you know what you're going to get with them. Like they're going to muck it up.
Sure.
They're going to make it ugly because that's what they do. And there's nothing wrong with that. They don't have to apologize, nor should they, for how they play. That's who they are. So don't be surprised if you see a couple scores this year like 39-20, but that, hey, I'm not, hey, don't knock it if it works. If it works, who cares?
Yeah. Oh, boy.
So.
Boy. All right. Okay. Let's shift to number 4 now. That used to be number 5. I think you and I both already pumped up Mennonite a little bit. So outside of Mennonite, who do you think is going to go for that second slot?
I talked about this with Coach Schultz in particular. It's funny. Like, yes, I think it is safe to put Mennonite on the 1 slot. I think that's fair. I think they've earned that. The thing with who might slide into number 2 is we lost a lot of talent in this section. Right. We talked about Columbia. They lost their core.
Yeah.
Like they lost who that team was.
Yeah.
Forget about the talent. There's something to be said for kids that have been there forever. And now those kids graduated. And the one thing, and I told Coach Glover this on Sunday when we talked, I was like, listen, the one thing I really appreciate about you, Coach, is after the Devon Prep game, he came out and he was like, listen, like, we got to find competitive depth. Like, this year we didn't really have it. We were able to get by with having
5 or 6,
really having a top of the line that was so much more dominant.
Yep.
But they do have guys. I mean, Braylon Miller, Artie Poindexter.
Yeah.
They are not like. It's not like Columbia is going to go to the cellar. Like that's not going to happen. But if we're just talking about like who is on the upper tier and who to look for, Columbia isn't going anywhere in that regard. And with Country Day, it's kind of the same thing. Maybe they don't lose a core, but you lose 1,000+ points, right? Like that's going to be a little different for them. But absent of losing Grant Landis, they bring back pretty much everybody. I was laughing with Coach Schultz. I was like, I don't know. Like, you might want to check these kids' IDs. Like, these kids have been here for like a long time. Like, but Kuma, Hoyne, really, essentially the whole team is coming back. And
I put the roster up the other day. They got some height coming back too. I mean,
they did
more development. Even the young guys have. There's a couple of 6'2", I mean, for a smaller school, that's not all bad. I don't think.
Right, and I'm not at all going to be hesitant to say that they can fight for a league playoff spot this year. I'm fine with saying that. Like there's no reason for me not to say that they're not going to be a threat. They certainly are.
Yeah.
So
Coach Glover, I don't think they've lost.
Kenny Glover,
Kenny Carey, one of his Glovers, like he hasn't. I don't think they've lost. I'm thinking at least 2 years, but has it been 3 in league? Have they gone unbeaten for 3 years in a row? I know it's been 2. They haven't lost a league game for 2 years, but it might even be 3. So we'll check on that. But, you're talking top dog. Somebody got to knock off the top dog. Well, I'm sure that Mennonite will be
right
that game. And, we'll drop another one. I think we got that live stream too. So we'll see. Depends on the weather.
We know how to pick them in late November. Yeah. We'll see what happens in January. But
depends what happens with the snow and all the connections and all that. So anyway, let's talk a little bit. I know you and I said it's going to be half an hour. We're going on close.
Yeah, we knew better. We knew that was going to happen.
No. Let's talk about the book that's coming out at some point. LL50. we did 50th year. I got a hold with Mike Gross. We had some ideas. We bought some ideas around. We did a lot of interviews. But what is your contribution to this book gonna be?
My contribution is really since I came back after college, which was the 2010s up until last year, up until the 50th. And my prevailing theme, and I mean, you have a better, like, longer term history with the league than I do, but what I wrote about in my section is how we had such awesome teams that came up just short, right? Like, that was really the prevailing theme.
Yep.
You had Mennonite, who came within. They went on that miracle run in 18. They lose on a one-legged, I'm falling out of bounds, and then the Tyler Zimmerman, I'll never forget the kid's name, from Richland, knocks them out. State semifinal game.
Yep.
They were going to play Newman Goretti. Didn't happen.
Yep.
McCaskey, the team that had the 5 kids for the longest time in playoffs.
Yep.
Kobe Gantz has a chance to beat Roman Catholic. Yep. In and out of the buzzer. Yep. They're out. Hempfield, the very first year of the decade. I wasn't here for this, but from afar, I remember reading about them. Fantastic year. They go, undefeated, and then lose in districts. So they don't win districts, and they lose kind of early in states. A fantastic year, but those 2 losses, they don't have a lot to show for it. Yeah. And of course, like Donegal, right? Like the one team that is like the enigma of all teams. They were so great. They were so historic. And if you're looking for like actual, like what a banner, what would be like banner worthy, quote unquote, all they have is a section title.
One section
title. And they had the coach of the year.
Yep.
And they had the coach of the year in the state.
Yeah.
Like, figure it out, right? And then obviously, like, I think the other teams I touched on were Cedar Crest in the middle of the part of the decade, where they played York twice in the district final, lost by 5 total, 2 years, 5 points.
Yep.
Cacalico,
the
COVID year, 24-22.
Yep.
Last 10-second shot goes in against them.
Yep.
Could have hosted a state playoff game, and they would have been 3 wins away from the state final. Yep. So that hurts. And then speaking of COVID, you had the Cardiac Crusaders, who won like every game in the most ridiculous way possible. They won the I think it was quadruple overtime. They played Bell Vernon. And then the next day is when, if you remember, when we started kind of dancing around with like, well, there's games played today, but like, we're going to play at Milton Hershey. Well, no, we're not going to play at Milton Hershey. We don't want you coming. And that's when everything started. So I mean, just my whole thing was like, what a great decade it was, but just really how, if you're looking to encapsulate what it was kind of close, but no cigar.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean those teams aren't historic, but really in a weird way, their shortcomings made them all the more memorable, right? And it's a weird thing to say, but like I kind of thought that's what the decade was kind of all about, you know?
Nice. Well, we will, as I'm speaking here today, I spent some more time editing, and we have Gordy Jones, he's helped us edit, and Mike Gross, and we're getting there. I was hoping for a Christmas release, so we shall see. We're going to have it out on Kindle. It'll be $4.99 on Kindle. We'll do a lot of PR on the website, obviously, and we're also going to have a pay for print through Amazon Prime, which would be $14.99. That'll be a soft cover paperback, and then we might do a hardcover if there's a demand. So we'll see. It's been an interesting process. I learned a lot about writing. I learned a lot about what people look for. I learned a lot about editing, and still learn the process. It's I have a lot of respect for authors at this point in my life. Not that we were, that I wrote a lot of stuff, but it's very interesting. And the people that work for us, Gordy and you and Mike Gross, some of these guys can weave stories like it's unbelievable. I'm just like, well, a guy scored 22 points, and there's a block shot, and that was the ball game, and the coach should have called timeout. That's what I can do. So these guys can weave stories. So we have the state championship teams featured. We have 2,000 point scores featured. A lot of stuff in the book, a lot of information. Some of it's on our website, some of it's not. So that's coming out. You talked about LL Hoops beanies. So what's the deal with that?
You tell me. We got to re-up from the way it sounds. I handed a couple of those out to coaches on Sunday at media day, and like I kind of thought beanies was like the next little trinket that we could offer instead of t-shirts, because like everybody can get it. Everybody can get a t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
Not that we shouldn't like reorder more, but
Yeah.
I thought beanies might be the way to go, and they were probably a even greater hit than I would have thought. Like everyone's like, "Oh yeah, like I'm a beanie guy." Absolutely. I'm like, okay, cool. Like
Well,
maybe I was onto something, so maybe I can be a marketer guy.
I'm sure you were. But we have them for sale on the website. So if somebody wants some, we do have a couple extra, and we'll do some giveaways. So we'll be out on the trail this weekend. Dell's kind of laid up, so he will not be out for a little bit, but I'm hoping to get out next week. Can you give us an idea of where you're headed this weekend?
That is a fantastic question.
Too early to tell.
No, there's some on the radar. I probably want to try and sneak down to Octorara, probably.
Nice.
I know Donegal is having Penn Manor over.
Yep.
Who else is in that? York Tech and Palmyra.
Yep.
It's weird. Like, and you can talk about this too. Like, it's tip-off weekend. Like for me, this caught me by surprise. Like I didn't even know this until the other week. Like normally we're off this weekend, but like some teams are playing, and it almost feels like some teams were like kind of caught off guard. Like, oh my God, the season can start this Friday. Let's try and find something. But aren't most teams like really doing like a full kickoff blast like next weekend, right? Is that right?
There's some tournaments next weekend. Like Lebanon has theirs next weekend. So some of the teams said, you know what, we'll just push our tournament back. We'll give our kids a little bit longer to practice, and we'll go from there. But that'd be good. We'll get some basketball in this week, and we'll pop some stuff up on the website. And again, we're looking forward to your wraps, and I will, again, I'm out of commission for a little bit, but I'll get back onto it. It won't be too long, maybe a week or so. We have some live streams scheduled, and we're hoping to get the LO finals again. So we got the interviews up. We'll have this up. So we got District 2 stuff. We're trying to migrate that off to the side a little bit, so you can just click on that stuff. And we got mid-pen this year. We got a writer that's going to do a little mid-pen action for us, a weekly column. So we're expanding a little bit, and got the same cast of characters. So thank you for everything that you do and what Bruce did this weekend, and we will be in touch. Hey, one last thing. Did Nebraska get a good football coach?
I think so. It was funny. Like everyone asked me, like, "What do you think? What do you think?" And my default answer, because there's truth to it, is I'm like, "Well, I said forever and ever that like literally anything would be better than what we had." So I don't know how much of an opinion I'm allowed to have, but I think he's a good guy. I think he likes to do rebuilds. He's done that before. I told somebody I probably have to be on my best behavior now, though, because he's a state college grad, played at Penn State, and he was at Temple. So maybe we're going to be out recruiting here a little bit more. So I probably should be a little bit more,
well, when
aware.
When you're writing for Eastern PA football, maybe you can talk to the kid and hand him a business card. It's all good. Hey, thank you, brother. It's a good chat, and we'll see you down the road. Appreciate all you do for us. Good night, man.
You got it. Keep healthy.